Welcome everyone. This is the account with the report for day 437 of the war in Ukraine. Thank you for joining me. Today I have 3 extra news segments. First, a clarification about the Kinzhal missile shot down. Second, updates on the feud between Wagner and the Russian MOD. Third, the assassination attempt on Zakhar Prilepin. All other updates are grouped into the usual situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and international developments. Before we start the news though, the flashpoints along the front. Bakhmut. Heavy fighting is reported inside the city. After a few days of calm, Russia has renewed its assaults. Russia has also started to heavily shell Bakhmut with incendiary ammunition. Several videos were shared on social media showing the apocalyptic scenes. And to start the news segment, a quick update from the commander of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Contrary to yesterday's statement, today Lieutenant General Mykola Oleshchuk, commander of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, stated that the Ukrainian military has indeed shot down the Russian Kh-47 Kinzhal hypersonic missile. And now for updates on the escalating feud regarding the Wagner PMC and Russian Ministry of Defense. The Washington Post has reported that the Russian Ministry of Defense has planned to discredit Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner PMC, citing leaked US classified documents. The Russian military leadership apparently has struggled to respond to Wagner Group boss Yevgeny Prigozhin's public insults and appealed to Russian President Vladimir Putin to intervene. Prigozhin's rants suggest that the pleas have fallen on Putin's deaf ears, as the leaked documents allege that Putin ordered Prigozhin to resolve the issue with the defense ministry, effectively siding with the generals over the Wagner chief. After Prigozhin threatened to withdraw Wagner forces from Bakhmut by May 10th, Ramzan Kadyrov, head of the Chechen Republic, quickly stated his Kadyrovites would be deployed to Bakhmut and take over any Wagner positions. Prigozhin's press service announced shortly after that Wagner would hand over its positions in the city of Bakhmut to Kadyrov's soldiers. The statement reads, "I am grateful to Ramzan Akhmatovich for agreeing to take up our position in Bakhmut, most likely having the ability to obtain everything he needed and all the necessary resources. I am already in touch with his representatives to start the transfer of positions immediately, so that on May 10th, at 12 a.m., precisely at the moment when we estimate that our combat potential will be completely exhausted, our comrades in arms will take our places and continue the assault on the city of Bakhmut." Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Ukrainian president's office, commented on the situation, suggesting Prigozhin has no direct communication with the Kremlin anymore, and this points to an internal war in Russia. And now the updates on the assassination attempt on Zakhar Prilepin. A car carrying Zakhar Prilepin, an anti-Ukrainian propaganda writer and member of the political party Adjust Russia for Truth, has been blown up in Russia's Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. The Russian Prosecutor General's office took control of the investigation into the explosion and quickly reported that a suspect, a Ukrainian named Alexander Permyakov, had been arrested, and he had confessed that the Ukrainian Special Services recruited him in 2018 and he entered the Russian Federation in 2022 in order to assassinate Prilepin. Meanwhile, Prilepin had surgery, which was described as successful, and after was put into an induced coma. No further information on his condition is currently available. The press service for the Security Service of Ukraine commented on the event, stating that involvement cannot be confirmed nor denied and will only be discussed after the war. However, this is not the first and will not be the last such event. A look at all the minor updates out of Ukraine. During the night, Ukrainian defenders shot down 8 Shahed drones and another 5 were shot down during the day. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, has reported that 45 Ukrainian Azovstal Defenders have been brought back from Russian captivity. In part 2 of Dmytro Komarov's documentary called Year, Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov of Ukraine noted that the Russians are learning very well as the war against Ukraine keeps raging on. Throughout the day, the Russian army conducted 104 strikes on populated areas of the Zaporizhia Oblast, including with the use of Iskander ballistic missiles. The Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office has recorded more than 84,500 Russian war crimes and crimes of aggression so far. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. In the morning, explosions rang out in the town of Dzhankoy in the northern part of the Russian-occupied Crimean Peninsula. Allegedly, the air defense system had been deployed, and according to Oleg Ryushkov, advisor to the head of the occupation administration, no casualties or damage were reported. Russian state media claimed that Ukrainian Hom-2 ballistic missiles were shot down. Additionally, local residents stated that the Kerch Bridge was temporarily closed to traffic. Ivan Fedorov, the mayor of Melitopol, reported that Russian authorities are burning large quantities of documents and shipping equipment from the passport office to Russia. He also stated that the evacuation in occupied Zaporizhia Oblast is proceeding too fast, and a traffic jam had formed at the Chonga checkpoint on the road from Melitopol to Crimea. Fedorov suggested Russia may use this possibility for false flag provocations among civilians. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. Russia currently has 6 warships on combat duty in the Black Sea, none of which are missile carriers. The Security Service of Ukraine and the Prosecutor General's office have gathered significant evidence on 170 senators of the Russian Federation Council who facilitated and supported the temporary occupation of parts of Ukraine's east and south and served them with notices of suspicion. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The Berlin Administrative Court has overturned the temporary ban on displaying Ukrainian flags at Victory Day commemoration events on May 8th to 9th. Tamila Tasheva, the Ukrainian president's permanent representative in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, has reported that several Western politicians are cautioning Ukraine against its plan to liberate Crimea, saying that this could lead to a nuclear war. Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal, who is in the UK for the coronation of King Charles III, met with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to discuss the upcoming Ukraine Recovery Conference in London, and also with President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen to discuss further EU support for Ukraine. The President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, who is also in London, said during a guest lecture at the Royal College of Defence Studies that the world is entering a new era of strategic competition between the West and autocracies. Roughly 13,000 Polish servicemen are reportedly taking part in the Anaconda 23 NATO military exercises taking place in southeastern Poland. And now for the intelligence report segment, starting with the UK Ministry of Defence. 6 Russian regions, occupied Crimea, and 21 cities have cancelled their May 9th Victory Day parades, citing security concerns. Victory Day commemorates the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany. Moscow's Victory Day celebration is likely to go ahead, but on a smaller scale. Russian President Vladimir Putin's reception following the parade last held in 2019 will not go ahead. The traditional March of the Immortal Regiment, where family members display photographs of deceased veterans of the Second World War associated with Victory Day, has also been cancelled. This follows the recent cancellation of the Russian-hosted International Army Games. The timing of the UAV strike on the Kremlin a few days before Victory Day shows Russia's increasing vulnerability to such attacks and has almost certainly raised the threat perception of the Russian leadership over the Victory Day events. The potential for protest and discontent over the Ukraine war are also likely to have influenced the calculus of the Russian leadership. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The Russian Ministry of Defense appears to have deprioritized the Bakhmut offensive in favor of preparing to defend against an anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive, putting the Wagner Group and Wagner financier Yevgeny Prigozhin in a potentially difficult position. Wagner's continued persistence within Bakhmut is incongruent with the overall slowdown in the pace of Russian offensive operations elsewhere in Ukraine, as conventional Russian forces appear to be largely shifting focus to prepare to receive the much-anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive. The losses suffered by Wagner in Bakhmut, alongside the likely deprioritization of the Bakhmut effort by the Russian MOD, may leave Prigozhin and Wagner in a particularly bad spot. Recently dismissed former Deputy Minister of Defense for Logistics, Colonel General Mikhail Mizintsev, is reportedly serving as Deputy Commander of the Wagner Group, likely as part of Wagner's campaign to retain access to Russian military supplies. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered newly appointed Deputy Minister for Logistics Alexei Kuzmenkov to control the supply of weapons and equipment to Russian forces in Ukraine. Russian occupation authorities announced the forced removal of 70,000 civilians in occupied Zaporizhia Oblast to areas deeper in the Russian-occupied rear under the guise of evacuations. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs proposed a draft bill aimed at appealing to growing anti-migrant sentiments in Russia and supporting the Russian military's effort to recruit migrants. Russian Human Rights Council head Valery Fadeev reportedly stated that Russian authorities should regulate Telegram channels similarly to how Russia censors state-controlled media. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy continues to focus its main efforts on conducting offensive actions in the Bakhmut and Marinka directions. Heavy battles are being fought for the cities of Bakhmut and Marinka. In general, during the day, the enemy carried out more than 30 attacks. In the Kupiansk direction, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions near the settlement of Sinkivka. In the Liman direction, the enemy is searching for weak points in our defense. The enemy led offensive actions in the direction of Bilohorivka and Spirne, but was unsuccessful. In the Bakhmut direction, the enemy continues offensive actions. Fighting continues in the city of Bakhmut. During the day, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the direction of Bodanivka, Ivanivske, Pretechine, and New York. In the Marinka direction, units of the defense forces repelled numerous enemy attacks in the area of the city of Marinka. The Russian occupiers do not stop robbing Ukrainian citizens and businesses in the temporarily occupied territories. In Enerhoda, as of May 5th, not a single car was left on the territory of the Elektro-Pivden Montage 10 enterprise. The warehouse was looted and machine tools were also taken away. Increasingly, information is being received about the low level of morale and psychological state of the enemy's personnel. Thus, in one of the divisions of the Russian occupation forces, located in the village of Mulino, Nizhny Novgorod region, commanders openly called subordinates cannon fodder. In addition, servicemen complain about unsatisfactory medical care, as well as provision of personal protective equipment and equipment. About 50% of the personnel do not have the opportunity to issue payment cards. They fear that in the event of their death, their funds will not reach their families. And that wraps up the report. If you're interested in any of the articles, you can find links to them in the description. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.